Now going to go back to you in Atlanta.
Thank you, Elizabeth Cohen in New York. Horrible stories, hundreds more in New York, and there are hundreds more here in Washington from the terrorism at the Pentagon, which is about 2 miles behind me. But we're going to turn back to the investigation. Osama bin Laden may end up the target of U.S. fury, but that doesn't mean he'll be an easy target. Let's go live now to CNN national security correspondent David Enzer here in Washington. David, what's the status of the investigation?
Well, the status of the investigation is still that the evidence is pointing heavily to Osama bin Laden's organization, but the Bush administration does not have the kind of evidence it's ready to say proves that that's who did this. They're not ready to make a final decision at this point. But already they and a lot of people outside are starting to think about what's the next step. How do you go after bin Laden and his organization if you do decide that he is guilty of these terrible attacks? It is not going to be easy. And a number of officials, senators like Senator McCain and others, have said that likely you would have to use ground troops, that bombs might not do it this time. They didn't do it in '98. They might not work this time either. So there are concerns about that. There's also a sense, though, that the U.S., after the losses it suffered, many people in the United States would support a decision, even if it costs some blood, to resolve this matter and end the danger of terrorism. But would it end the danger of terrorism? A number of experts argue that it would take more than troops, that it would involve an occupation of a long-term type that could be fraught with all sorts of problems. So nobody's ready to say where the administration's going yet. Outside experts say that the choices are not going to be easy ones. Greta? All
right, thank you. David Enzer. With Osama bin Laden believed to be in Afghanistan and a potential target, how are people there handling the situation? Our Nic Robertson is in Kabul, Afghanistan, and joins us by video phone. Nick?
Well, Greta, certainly the Taliban leadership growing increasingly concerned about what may happen next, issuing another statement only a few hours ago, again trying to distance Osama bin Laden from what happened on Tuesday in the United States. They said in this statement, how could Osama bin Laden have been involved in that? They said, how could he have trained pilots? Where could he have trained pilots? They said it was impossible to imagine that he had, therefore proving he wasn't involved. They said that they wanted everyone who was working on this, on the investigation, to think carefully about how they proceed next. And certainly on the streets in Kabul, growing apprehension also about what may come next. The streets a little quieter Thursday. It's Friday morning here now. Today, traditionally a day of rest, a day of prayer, but very quiet on the streets. Many people staying at home. Few people, however, we're aware of at this time leaving the city. After 20 years of civil war, many people here are very, very poor, and we talked to some of them yesterday. They told us, we're concerned about what's happening, we're worried about it, but we're too poor. Our main concerns are really just getting food for the coming evening. So apprehension here, but a lot of people really not knowing what to do next. A lot of common people really just sitting tight and waiting to see what happens, Greta.
All right, Nick, thanks for joining us from Afghanistan.